wears a mask to cover his face is a coward.
Welcome back to another breakdown for Daredevil Born Again, with another shocking episode with episode 3, just kind of diving deeper and deeper into how much chaos is currently going on in New York City, with Fisk being mayor and Daredevil not being around. And honestly, I find it so interesting how they set up White Tiger. They had him set up for 2 episodes just for him to get blasted by the end. However, I feel like that's more to kind of show what it is like to be a vigilante currently in New York, how you have people where it's not safe for anyone to be around. People are walking around with guns, like they said in the BB report, like people don't feel safe. And especially with Fisk going after vigilantes, and you have the dirty cops who are wearing the Punisher logos, it's not really safe for any of the vigilantes out there, because these people are just going to be taking means into their own hands and taking out people left, right, and center. So it's really interesting to see how they kind of portray this, how they set it up, just to show the horrors it could really lead to if you were actually a vigilante in New York. However, we'll talk more about that ending when we get to it after we go over the episode, because I have a few things to say about that specifically. However, as we go forward, the first thing in the episode is the BB report talking about how the public isn't safe. Which is like what I just said. It's not safe out there right now with Daredevil not being around, and with just some vigilantes currently being known in the city. It's not really safe for your average day-to-day citizen. Now, the thing is, there probably are a bunch of other vigilantes running out through New York, but they're only staying in specific sections of New York. So people in like Hell's Kitchen probably don't have anyone, so they're feeling that pain. People in other districts are also feeling that pain. So it's really interesting to kind of just show us that other side of things through the BB report. That's not Matt, that's not Fisk. So it's really nice just to see that other like viewpoint where we're kind of figuring out how the citizens are feeling about everything going on in their neighborhood. Then we have Vanessa and Fisk talking about how Vanessa isn't dealing with the Kingpin business anymore. Just kind of showing that she stepped away ever since Fisk became mayor. And it's also just leading to absolute chaos with the mobs fighting amongst one another. Like how at the start of the episode, we saw the Irish mob take out another member of a different mob as they were taking a shipment to the Red Hook Pier. So just setting up very interesting stuff to come down with the complete chaos where we're going to have like this turf war. At least that's what it's seeming like. Especially with Fisk saying he wants to let them kill each other. They want to let this chaos reign because then it'll end up going back to order after some time. But Vanessa thinks they're going to be going after Fisk next because of the fact that he was the Kingpin. He is the person everyone sees as the one that kind of looks over New York. And now that he's mayor, they're definitely going to be going after him at some point. Which definitely kind of makes me think that they might be going after Vanessa, and Vanessa might get killed this season, just to send Fisk into that spiral of rage and him going back to his ways. However, I don't fully think he's going to do that, because I think they're going to keep him mayor for at least a little while and not just season 1 of Daredevil. But with the mention of the Red Hook Pier, this is definitely kind of showing us what's going on and how this is a main focus this season. In the first episode, Foggy talked about how Benny was at the Red Hook Pier. That's what their court case was about, was revealing something that happened there, and that's why Bullseye was sent after Foggy to take him out. Now, the thing is, Bullseye was probably sent after Foggy, Karen, and Matt, but because Matt was suited up as Daredevil, obviously he wasn't getting hit at that point, but I definitely feel like they were being targeted for whatever was going on with the Red Hook Pier. So either Vanessa or Fisk sent them after him, or one of the other mobsters did. However, with that, you might think, why would they work with him, especially after the event of Daredevil Season 3, where he tried to kill Vanessa and then Fisk broke his back. Which I could see him just using him as a hired gun, knowing that he could do the job, or he thinks he can control Bullseye. So very curious to see how that's going to kind of tie into it, what the Red Hook Pier is really leading into, because they've talked about it in 2 different episodes. Because in episode 1 as well, Vanessa also mentioned it, how it's a tax-free zone and then no one gets messed there. So something else is going on there for the criminal underworld. Plus, the Red Hook Pier was also introduced in Iron Fist and Punisher, where Colleen Wing and Iron Fist went in and fought there, and then Punisher also took the war to Red Hook as well. So look, there's all these connections to the vigilantes of New York City and the mob, so I'm very curious to see like where it's going to go. How is it going to tie into the overall plot? And 100% at some point, Matt's going to find out who sent Bullseye and why Foggy was killed. So I'm very curious to see when we get to that point and what actually might be going down. Then we catch up with Officer Powell, who's going to see Matt in the bathroom to pretty much threaten him because he's interfering with a police investigation. Now, I love how Matt threatens him about how would the court feel about him going and interrogating the witness and how it would kind of go from there, which is really nice to see. It's kind of showing how Matt can get away with what he just did because the cop's so dirty that he can't risk bringing up that dirty to the court. Otherwise, it's all going to get kind of shown that a blind man first beat him up, and then second of all, he was interfering with the court. So very curious to kind of see how that's going to go down, especially after this episode with everything that went on with Officer Powell and how he lied through his teeth when it led to him being on the stand. Now, one of the main things here that I was noticing is that Officer Powell is actually a character from the comics. Well, at least the name Powell is, because in the comics there's a character named Christopher Powell who's actually a character named Darkhawk. Now in the comics, Chris found an amulet that transported him into the Darkhawk armor. That's how he has his powers, and that's how he became this hero known as Darkhawk. And the thing is, Officer Powell is not Chris Powell. Chris Powell is actually the son of Officer Powell, who is named Mike Powell. And Mike Powell in the comics was also dirty, where he was accepting bribes from mob bosses like Felipe Bazin, which just makes him a dirty cop. And this would just lead into everything going on here. Officer Powell is a dirty cop. I feel like this is just a reference to who Darkhawk is, because I highly doubt we're going to be seeing him in the MCU, but it is kind of cool to kind of get that little connection there, especially with that name drop. I feel like they chose the name specifically for a reason. The guy's a dirty cop. He's connected to Darkhawk, and it just makes a lot of sense to me. But let me know what you think about that, and if you think it was any kind of reference, or if they just chose a random name. Now, as we move forward, we have Cherry going to bring Nikki Torres some drugs, so he's not going through withdrawals while he takes the stand in court. Now, one of the things we notice here is when Cherry is going, we do see a Punisher logo on the wall that says triggered. Now, this is most likely another tease for Muse coming in, because Muse did go around and paint murals all over the city with different superheroes in the comics. So this could most likely be one of Muse's murals being painted here, and I'm sure we're going to see more and more as this series progresses before we actually meet Muse himself. Now, when we get to Officer Powell in court, we do have a lot of moments about how he pretty much lies on the stand and he's committing perjury, because he's talking about how Hector just went and attacked him. There was no reason to it. Him and his partner were just doing checks of the subway station, and then they were just attacked. Pretty much just trying to show that Hector is the real bad guy in all of this, while he's trying to cover his ass because they are dirty cops. And I do really like the moment when Matt is cross-examining him, and he comes up and he says, the best cure for a black eye is fast hands, which is just a nod to the fact that his father was a boxer, which we did learn about in the early seasons of the Daredevil show. And it turns out that Nikki Torres was actually the informant for Officer Powell and Officer Shanahan. So really interesting to kind of see how they kind of led into all of this, right? You have one guy lying, the dirty cop lying, beating up his informant, the one that's supposed to be helping him. It's just showing how corrupt the New York City cops are currently, and that something needs to be done about it. Now, obviously not a lot's going to get done, because now you have Fisk as mayor. He's going to cover for those dirty cops so we can use them for whatever he wants, because well, they're dirty, they're going to follow the mayor, and the mayor's going to let them slide and not have to worry about them. Now, in the courtroom, we do have another cop in there with a Punisher logo tattooed on his neck and saying that Torres cannot testify, all setting up the fact that these cops are idolizing the Punisher for taking down vigilantes and criminals, and the Punisher is getting rid of the kind of filth that's on the streets. However, like I've said last episode, the Punisher does not run for that ideal. The cops took an oath to uphold justice and do stuff the right way, where the Punisher is not like them. He goes around and he takes out bad guys because that's what he does. He's not supposed to work within the system, but the cops swore an oath that they're supposed to. So I cannot wait to see Frank come in and absolutely either yell, beat up, or do some pretty bad stuff to these cops who were dirty and doing these terrible things, especially after the end of the episode. Now, one of the things I wasn't expecting, when they were getting Nikki to the courthouse, that Cherry wasn't actually going to be driving with him and he was just going to be a decoy. Because, of course, Officer Powell was the one that came up and stopped him and went to go check to see if Nikki was there, going to take him and kill him so that he wouldn't say anything. However, I guess it didn't really matter at the end of the day, because after they say that Nikki was busted for drugs, he was working with the cops to get that charge removed. He just lied under oath anyways and said that he wasn't at the subway station, that he didn't see anything happening. It's like everything that was set up shows that this guy is so scared of the dirty cops that he's willing to commit perjury, just like how Officer Powell did in front of everyone. He knows that if he says anything, he's gonna get shot himself as soon as he leaves the courtroom. Either that or get thrown in jail anyways, and all he wants to do is protect his kid, who he wants to help support. So very interesting, kind of, again, show how dirty the cops are and how much control they have over people. Now, as the episode progressed, we did have Buck Cashman going to seize the other mob bosses and deal with them so that they're not going around killing each other, because Vanessa doesn't want them kind of committing bloodshed and having all the chaos that Fisk wanted. Now, the thing is here, which we did learn after last episode, where we watched Fisk in front of Buck threaten the police commissioner, we are having him here once again, being the kind of the relay boy, the person that keeps it so that Fisk is completely out of it. It doesn't have to tie back to him, and that he's going around doing the kind of dirty work that Fisk can't. So very interesting to kind of set up his character. I feel like as the series progresses, we're going to see him do some more terrible things, and he'll be kind of that lackey that goes and deals with stuff so that nothing comes back to Vanessa and Fisk. Now, as we go back to the courtroom scenes, we get the big moment of how Matt wants to put Hector on trial, hoping that the jury will hear his story and feel the same way about him that Matt does about how he's innocent and how he's a good person. One of the things I really liked was showing how Hector was, the reason he was at that subway station is because he just had went and put a deposit on a studio for him and his wife so that they could go move out of his sister's apartment. Which you might think that this is talking about Ava Ayala, the third White Tiger from the comics who does take the mantle, but I feel like it's more of his other sister, Awilda Ayala, which would make more sense because she does have kids, and we do see his niece sitting next to his wife in the trial. Now the thing is, his niece is in the comics is named Angela Del Toro, and she's a lot older, but she's also the second White Tiger who first appeared in Daredevil number 58 from 2004. Now the thing is, she would become a hero at one point and then eventually go down a villainous road after the event of Shadowlands in the comics, where she would be killed by Lady Bullseye and then resurrected by the Hand and brainwashed by the Hand, and then she would stay loyal to the Hand after that. So just in general, she became a villain, but I feel like they're not going to go into that complicated story for the show. But the thing is, she is a little young to be that second White Tiger, unless they're trying to go more route that where she might join the Young Avengers or the Champions, but the suit definitely wouldn't be fitting her anytime soon. However, I do feel like they're still going to be going down the Ava Ayala road, especially with what happened at the end of the episode. They'll just skip over the second iteration and go to the third iteration, mostly because Ava is a more well-known character, and she is White Tiger to this day in comics. So I do love how they have these little hints and little details that kind of just tease the different backgrounds for these characters, just giving us more love for the Marvel Comics and giving us those characters, even if they're subtle. Now, what I was not expecting from this episode was Matt to pull a Hail Mary and pull out the White Tiger mask to reveal that Hector's been the White Tiger all along, revealing his identity in front of the cops, the court, and everyone, so now everyone knows his secret identity. Which is kind of ironic because Matt was the one that literally went to the judge and was like, hey, we cannot show that he's White Tiger, like this isn't gonna work because then they're gonna have a jury bias, blah 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 blah, and then he did it because he lost his star witness, and somehow Matt got off scot-free. He was able to get out of it, and you know, I felt this was very hypocritical for Matt as well, because he would also not want his secret identity revealed in front of everyone. He does it to protect his friends and family, and also obviously to not get arrested for the shit he does. But the thing is, he wouldn't want his identity revealed this way either, so I found it super ironic that he did this. And then that leads into Matt and Hector talking, and how Hector is saying that it wasn't his secret to tell, which is so true. And the thing is about the scene is there's a lot of things that are happening during it that were kind of hints for Daredevil and then White Tiger himself, where Matt's telling him he can no longer put the mask on because his identity was revealed, showing that if he keeps putting it on, pretty much he puts his family and himself at risk because people will know who he is, and if they see White Tiger going around stopping crime and fighting people, they're gonna go after him and his family, and it's gonna put them all at risk. Now, Hector says that it's more than a suit and it's a calling, and how it chose him, which is just how heroes usually are. They'll get powers. They chose them to get powers, and they chose them to be heroes. Which is kind of like how Spider-Man became a hero. He got powers, it chose him, and he became this hero because it was the thing he had to do. Same with Daredevil. He got powers, which at first he was just a kid who eventually got trained to being this hero, and then, you know, he brought vengeance into his old hands, which is chosen. He had the calling, and now the thing is Hector kind of relaying this to Matt, is sitting up Matt putting the Daredevil suit on again, making Matt realize what it means to be a hero, even though in this moment, he does say that Hector can do good without the mask, and how he has to think about his family, and how he might not realize how much he won't miss it while he's not the White Tiger anymore. Which is just showing that Matt, after he stopped being Daredevil, he kind of justifies it to himself that he does it to protect the people around him because Foggy was killed, where someone he cared about got hurt because he was a hero, and also he says he doesn't miss it, but they do show him sitting in the courtroom playing with his Daredevil horn after Karen gave it to him, and it definitely shows that he's thinking about it. He's thinking about putting the suit back on. He's thinking about being that hero once again. It's a calling, and it's calling back to him to get suited back up and be that hero. And I feel like, especially after the end of this episode, he's going to be putting that suit back on, and he's going to go probably whoop some ass. Now, when they're back in court, they have witnesses talking about what White Tiger has done for the city. We have him saving someone from a burning car, someone stopping from getting mugged. Officer Lucas Barlow talking about how he was saved by White Tiger while he was going on a case. And then they also have a bunch of other names referenced, but there's a specific one they mentioned, which was Officer Morales, which is a reference to Miles Morales, aka Spider-Man from the comics. Now the thing is, technically Jefferson Morales was first named Jefferson Davis, but he did change his name legally in the comics to Jefferson Morales. Now all this is just a nice little tease and nod to who Miles Morales is because he's such a popular character, because I don't think we're going to be getting Miles anytime soon. I don't think he's going to be appearing for years to come in the MCU, especially when Peter's still so young. But I do like how they had that little Easter egg in there because Officer Morales is a cop, and it's just nice to see. And we also just got this fantastic speech of Matt talking about how Hector is a hero, and I just really enjoyed that scene in general. I like seeing the court scenes with Matt because it shows his lawyer side of stuff. I'm just hoping that by next episode, we do get him suiting up as Daredevil once again, and we do get the Daredevil action. I mean, when they said they were reshooting this show because there wasn't a lot of Daredevil action in it, it feels like after these first couple episodes, we have not got that Daredevil action yet since like the beginning moments of the first episode that they reshot for the series because they had to go back and redo a bunch of stuff. So I'm really hoping that we do get Daredevil action real soon because I want to see the suit. I want to see him suit up. It's going to be pretty cool when he does, and I can't wait. Now, we also have Ben Hochberg here talking about how good people can do bad things, but they're also talking about how cops don't wear masks and they still do their job, and how real heroes don't need to hide, which is kind of like a running trend with superheroes where people are like, you don't need to wear a mask to be a hero. Now, the thing is, of course, this is very ironic because there's certain things cops can't do that heroes can, all in order to kind of protect the city and make sure people are safe. So I found it very interesting the way they put that in there, because it is definitely a nod about how certain characters feel about being masked. Just like how J. Jonah Jameson talks about how Spider-Man is just a menace because he's running around the city masked, because why would a hero be masked up unless he's hiding something? Now, it was nice to see that when they got to the verdict part of the episode that Hector was found not guilty on all 3 counts. And the thing is, I thought they were going to go more with his comic book route where he does get charged and he does get thrown in jail, where he does freak the hell out, runs out of the courtroom and gets shot and ends up dying in front of the courtroom because he took off and tried to run from the law. Now, they didn't do that and they kind of changed it, but I mean, he still ended up dying and he still ended up getting shot, but not in the same way. So very interesting how they tweaked his backstory just a little bit from the comics, just to kind of fit the story and give Matt a win. But it was nice to see because it's showing what vigilantes still mean to the public. They show them as heroes, and none of them are seeing them as bad people yet. And I feel like it's slowly going to change as Fisk takes over. Because then we have BB Urich going to see Fisk, and Fisk talking about how the trial was bad. Hector shouldn't have won. He should have been thrown in jail because vigilantes are not real heroes. So they're definitely just setting up more Fisk's anti-vigilante rhetoric and how he wants to take down vigilantes, and he's very, very pushing that as he works with the cops. The cops he can have on his payroll. The vigilantes, he cannot. So, very curious to see how they're going to keep diving into that. And I feel like it's just going to get worse and worse for the vigilantes, and I can't wait to see how they deal with it. And we also get this really nice moment in the episode about Matt finally opening up about Foggy to Heather, just kind of having him talk about his death and something he hasn't really done since the trial and Foggy's death. So it's just really nice to see him kind of opening up to someone new, and also opening up the bottle of alcohol that him and Foggy would normally drink after they win a case. So just really nice moment there, which then all eventually led into the very devastating moment of White Tiger shooting up to go on patrol and then just getting blasted in the head by someone wearing a Punisher logo. Which, this is not Frank Castle. It is 100% not Frank Castle. He would not kill a vigilante like that because White Tiger has not done anything wrong. He would realize that himself, knowing that there's dirty cops in the city, and he would do his own investigation. He would interrogate him first. He wouldn't just blast him in the head. Now, the fact is, the guy's wearing a Punisher logo. Punisher is 100% coming back to freak the hell out. This dude is going to come back and get mad, and he's either going to torture someone, he's either going to shoot someone, or he's going to beat the living crap out of someone, because no one's allowed to walk around with his logo on it, especially cops. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen, because the Punisher has to come back now, reclaim himself, and take down the people pretending to be him. Especially because he would not stand for killing another hero like this. I mean, the Punisher will kill other vigilantes. Like, that is something he would 100% do. He would be doing it for the right reason, especially if the right reason was that person was actually a villain. I don't think it would be as plain and simple as Frank just shooting someone without figuring out exactly who they are first. But that episode was intense. I really liked the whole part of the trial was fantastic, especially with the stakes being really high, with the vigilantes now coming in, and I'm very curious to see how they're going to keep going with this series, and Matt doing his trials, who else we're going to see get put on trial, and if it's going to tie more into vigilantes, or if it's going to be a mix of different trials, or for people who've been framed or something along those lines. I can't wait for more episodes, especially with what Fisk is planning and how the dirty cops are going to be involved, because I feel like that's a major part of this storyline. They're going to be tied to Fisk, and they're going to be tied to Matt, especially after he beat Officer Powell, and now they kind of know that a blind man can beat their ass. And I'm very excited to see what happens next. But let me know, what did you think of this week's episode of Daredevil Born Again? Were there any other Easter eggs and references you noticed during it? And if you liked this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, it helps out the channel a lot, and you get to stay up to date with all my Daredevil Born Again videos, as well as my other DC, Marvel, and anime videos. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you next week when it's time to watch another episode of Daredevil Born Again.